Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are taking a look at the Sultanate Order of Battle. This one is one of the latest factions to join the open seas in Dystopian Wars, and it's being released alongside the Alliance battle fleet, but this one got the update first and I can't wait to go through it with you. Now, as always, we'll be going over all of the things that make these units special in this deep dive, but before we start off, I would like to start off with what makes the Sultanate special, what makes them play like no other faction in this game. If you are looking at a faction that has maneuverability beyond anything you've seen before, even though I said that the Chinese had very good maneuverability, the Union had very good maneuverability, this really takes it up to 11 when it comes to the Sultanate. Mind you, that does come at a cost when it comes to their toughness overall. But let's first dive into what makes this a special faction. The first thing we check out, as always, are the special rules, and there's quite a few of them relating to that maneuverability I mentioned earlier. First of all is Agile. Quite a few units have this, although not all of them do, and it means that unless you're actually suffering from a navigation lock critical damage marker, this unit can make turns during the drift movement as if it were part of their normal movement. Now, just a quick reminder, a navigation lock critical marker means you can make no turns at all, so this rule doesn't override that. But it does allow you to make those important turns during drifting. And I'm not just going to go through them in their order. I'm going to go straight to Power Slide, which is why I said maneuverability is their strong suit. When they are making a drift action, they can drift in any of the directions, port or starboard, instead of just going straight ahead. So you can make an up to 90-degree angle to make your drift, and if you benefit from both Power Slide and Agile, you can just do whatever you want really in your drift phase. It's hard to find any ships that can do better than this. Other than that, the Sultanate has a couple of rules relating to their toughness. I'm going to go over those in tandem as well. The first one of them, is armored decking. Now, this is an extra protection you get against weapons with the aerial quality. And what does it do? Well, it downgrades heavy hits to single hits rather than, your usual 2 hits when you score that you would score against these ships. So it's sort of a built-in shrouded generator, but only against aerial qualities. Now, the most common of these are of course SRS tokens and rocket attacks, and these Sultanate forces have got some extra protection against those. The other one, which was recently slightly tweaked, is this one. Now, I'm gonna make a guess at how to pronounce this, but a Orichalcite construction? Sorry if I butchered that, but if you're battle ready, it's an important note, you have to be battle ready. When you have this rule, you do not suffer from catastrophic explosions. Normally, if you suffer from at least a hit that is twice your citadel value, instead of taking critical damage, you take a catastrophic explosion, which means you lose 2 hull points, you gain 2 disorder tokens, and that makes your ship shrink down really, really quickly. These guys don't get that, provided they are battle ready. However, they are still suffering from critical damage, even if your opponent manages to roll more than twice your citadel value. So it's just an extra level of toughness built into these ships. However, if you are looking at the Sultanate, if you're sort of on the hunt for a very tanky faction, I'm afraid these special rules are not an indication just of how tough they are. They do have these extra rules, but they also have very low hull points and armor compared to most other factions, so this sort of offsets that in a way. Other than these two, when it comes to toughness, we get the traditional heavy magazines for some of the flagships, meaning you can fire up to 3 weapons of either gun batteries or rocket batteries with their lead value instead of their support value. This makes flagships incredibly powerful. So we've seen this before. I've had a couple of games right now with this new rule, and I have to say I really enjoy what Warcradle did with the flagships. When your opponent activates their flagship, that really is a tense moment now, where you just know that a bunch of firepower is coming your way. So I'm really liking that. The other special rule that they get is linear dash. Now, they are incredibly maneuverable with both agile and power slide, but if you opt not to use one of those things, you can just gain straight up 2 speed during the movement step if you don't make any turns whatsoever. I think this is a nice interaction with power slide, because power slide technically isn't turning. You're still facing the same way. When you do this, you're just, drifting left or right as you desire, and alongside of this linear dash, it does seem that you can just power slide to the side and then just keep +2 speed in your movement step through this rule. So it's again a very interesting way to maneuver with these ships. And another special rule, which is weird to be finding it here because I found it in some of the individual unit rules before, is maritime patrol. Now, what does this do? Well, you get to reroll blank results when attacking submerged units if there is at least one SRS token friendly within 5 inches of it to sort of act as a pseudo spotter but for submerged units. Next up, we are taking a look at the different battle fleets available to the Sultanate. When you're selecting your force, it has to be made up of 1 or more different battle fleets. In the thing, I went over this on my how to make a fleet in Dystopian Wars video if you want some more information on that one. Also, if you like to see more of these types of videos and deep dives into the rules of this game, make sure that you click the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like these. The Sultanate has not that many different battle fleets to it available just yet. It starts off with a generic battle fleet, of course called the Sultanate battle fleet, where you take a single flagship and up to 4 different units with the Sultanate trait. And again, much like any other of the generic battle fleets, you cannot spam any unit more than once. So even if you want to take the same unit twice, you're not allowed to in this type of battle fleet. And the bonus for taking this battle fleet is just the standard command reroll. Now, what is a command reroll? Just a recap. A command reroll means that you can make or remake another one of your disastrous rolls during gameplay. You just pick up all of the dice and throw them again. There's just one small little catch. You cannot use this rule if you've already re-rolled some of the dice in your dice pool before, because you had rules like sustained, for instance, and the Sultanate does have access to some of these rules, so you've got to keep that in mind. The command reroll, if you're keen on taking a lot of particle beamers, might not be the most useful rule to you in general. The other one you get is the Natolia battle fleet. This is the first set that was released for this faction, and no surprises here, you have to take the Natolia class ship if you want to use this battle fleet. Also, you must include the Iskandar unit, which is their sort of standard cruiser, which comes with 2 heavy gun batteries, if I'm not mistaken, and you have to include one of those. You can then add a further 3 units with the Sultanate and Turkish traits, so you have to limit yourself to the Turkish flagships, more on which later. There are different keywords in this ORBAT as well. And you are now allowed to take at least 2 of any of those units, but you can't take more of 2 of them unless they are the basic cruiser called the Iskandar. The extra benefit from doing so is your flagship can take these ferric skiffs, which are their escort ships, for free if you at least include a maximum size Iskandar unit. Now, these ferric skiffs have not been released yet, but we'll hope to see them soon in the near future. Also, this faction should have one of the mercenary fleets available to them, but they have not been fleshed out yet. It's the League of the Crimson Battle Fleet, but this one is coming soon. We'll learn more, no doubt. And, of course, the Sultanate can take mercenaries of their own. They can take the Black Wolf, as was seen in the Commonwealth Orbat, the Honorable Eclipse Company seen in the Union Orbat, although this one is also not yet fleshed out, the League of Crimson, which should come out soon, and the Nautilus, which was released in the Crown Orbat, if you want to add them to your forts. Next up, we have the different outfitting yards, the equipment essentially that the Sultanate can take, and their Ferik escort skiffs that we just mentioned that the Anatolia battle fleet could take for free are mentioned here. It's classed as an escort. Now, just a quick reminder, what does an escort do? It doesn't do much in terms of attacking, however it increases the defense value of the ships that they are accompanying. Every escort adds +1 to both aerial defense and submerged defense, so you can get to some very ludicrous numbers if you include some of those. And they're always well worth taking when you're filling out the final bits of points in your list. Now, what makes this special? First of all, it's a skimming model and cannot cause a collision when it moves. I thought that was a bit of a weird one because in the rules I think it states that you can never collide with your own escorts, but this one cannot collide with anything. It's a small detail, but it's mentioned here. On top of that, and this makes it more interesting, because of its small size and nimbleness, it cannot be targeted unless you find it at point blank range, and only then if you're using weapons with the sustained or aerial quality. So you need something with rockets or particle beamers or similar weapons to knock it out of the skies, which means that directly targeting those escorts is going to be tricky, and you're going to sort of have to, if you're the opponent of the Sultanate, rely on a magazine explosion to clear out those escorts, so they are above average when it comes to this faction. Other than that, we're moving on to the generators, the different generators they have available, and they come with all of the standard ones, as you can imagine. However, they have 2 unique ones, and they're very much worth taking a look at. The first one is the Mirage generator. This one was slightly nerfed compared to the first version of the Orbat, but that was a version 0 point something, so I never paid too much heed to it. It's a good one though, because unless the attacker is at point blank range, then it doesn't work. A model with this generator is obscured to attacks with the gunnery quality. That essentially makes them mass 1 ships when it comes to being targeted by weapons with the gunnery quality. And that is a hefty bit of tech if you are in a shootout with different other ships, so no joke there. And doesn't end there. And if each model in the unit is effectively equipped with this generator as a special operations action, each model in the unit can be just removed from play as you go during special operations and replaced at a new point within 5 inches of its original position. As if Agile and the power slide wasn't enough yet, these things can just skip to wherever they want to be if they've got these generators within 5 inches just during the special operations step. You know, catching these guys off guard is going to be next to impossible, and I can imagine that if you're a more experienced player of Dystopian Wars, you can absolutely have a blast with these ships just hovering out of position. And you know, you can just straight up gain another 5 inches of movement thanks to the Mirage generator. To me, this just makes the which one was it again? The one that gave extra speed, the atomic generator. That one just straight out overrides it. The Mirage generator is just the way to go. The other one that makes that is special in the Sultanate is the portal generator. Now, you can make a 50mm portal token within 5 inches of this unit if you've got this generator equipped during your special operations. I'm not sure what they're going to be using for portal markers just yet, but I know that West Exodus uses 50mm special portal tokens, so yeah, hopefully they'll use the same molds because they're gorgeous. They're see-through resin kits, and I would love to see them incorporated more into Dystopian Wars as well. Now, if you've got multiple of these portal generators in this unit, you can increase that distance that each portal marker can be deployed by another 5 inch. So if you've got a unit of 3 cruisers and each of them has these, you can drop your portal within 15 inch should you so desire. During the round, any friendly unit making an attack with the bomb quality. Now, there's not that many weapons with the bomb quality, but one of the unique ones from the Sultanate has it, and I'll talk more about that when we get to it. If you're making an attack with the bomb quality and you have a portal marker within 5 inch of that unit, you may measure the range of the attack as though it was being made from any other portal markers. So if you're going to go for the portal generators, make sure that you've got multiples of these throughout your whole fleet, so you can carpet bomb the whole board with portal markers, and then these special bomb quality weapons can just shoot out of any of them, as long as the original firing unit has line of sight to the initial target, so you can't just bypass it to indiscriminately fire behind some big rock somewhere, but you do gain a 360-degree fire arc when used within that portal. And there's another bonus to it, except for some, bomb shenanigans. If you've got any friendly unit becoming available from reserve, you can just be deployed within 2 inch of any of the portal markers you've dropped so far, instead of using any of the deployment options. So you get some more predictability in where you want your reserves coming in. And as a quick reminder, if you want to put things in reserves, you have to take a second battle fleet, and that whole battle fleet gets to be put in reserve. However, they do have some very funky options when it comes to their flagships, because these cruisers from the Sultanate can be glued together, if you will, to form these catamarans, which can act as flagships as well, and I can pack a punch really through these portal generators. That's essentially one of them. However, if you use it once a reserve unit has been deployed within 2 inches, you have to remove most of those portal markers. So it's not like you can just carpet bomb them and you make use of them every single turn. It does require a bit of thinking to go with it. Still, this looks like an immensely fun option to play with if you're a Sultanate player, and so I can't wait to see some of my opponents try it out. Next up, we're having a quick look at some of the weapons employed by the Sultanate, and there's not that many of them that are very much unique to this faction alone. I mean, come to think of it, there's only a single one in there, called the Orikalshite, again, pronunciation things, Flechette Launcher, which is something that only shoots at point blank. It does shoot with a horrendous amount of dice, mind you, and comes with a blast marker as well. So it has the potential to do a lot of damage, were it not for that short range. However, you mustn't forget this is the one that has the bomb quality, and that portal generator that we've mentioned earlier works in unison with this. You can launch this one via a portal at your enemy, but you do have to set it up nicely. The reward for it, however, is quite great. I mean, 12 dice single and 9 in support means that you can really do a horrendous amount of damage if you manage to do this right. Other than that, when we're looking through the list, there's mostly the things you find in other factions. However, they do also have the Etheric Lance, which is a great thing to see, and they have the Particle Beamer along with the Micro Torpedo Salvo. So we're seeing quite a few things that usually are found in enlightened forces that the Sultanate can employ as well, which is a unique thing in and of itself. Now, we're moving on to the flagships, and the first one is the Natolia Heavy Battlecruiser, which is the one that was just recently released as that box. Comes in at 235 points, which is on the cheap end of the scale for a flagship. When we're looking at the stats, the first thing to notice is it does have a slightly low-end citadel value. However, it might not be the worst thing in the world, because it is protected with that special rule that downgrades all of your catastrophic hits to critical hits, but you will be eating slightly more critical hits than perhaps you are used to. And the other thing is, in terms of hull points, it's a bit below what you'd expect for full-sized battleships, so keep that in mind. On the plus side, it does move slightly faster than you would expect, and again emphasizing that nimbleness of these ships. They come with both a turn limit of 5, the linear dash, and power slide. So this is something that moves pretty much as well as you would expect from a cruiser, so definitely not bad there. When it comes to weapons, it is a bit of a weird one, however. It comes with heavy magazines, so expect quite a lot of dice out of those heavy gun batteries. However, the heavy gun batteries are forward facing, and it has 2 regular gun batteries that are both aiming at the aft, so at the back, and either port or starboard. Meaning, if you want to make the most out of that heavy magazine rule, it ends up with a side firing profile. Not the end of the world, but something to keep in mind. I don't mind that much though with the Natolia heavy battlecruiser because of its nimbleness. Setting up those perfect shots will be a lot easier compared to what you're doing with other battlecruisers as well. Other than that, I can change out the gun batteries for etheric lances, but again, they're shooting at the back, so that might not be the most ideal thing in the world. And it can replace any of the heavy gun batteries it has in the front with either heavy rocket batteries if you want that slightly bit of extra range, or particle beamers for an extra 5 points. However, I would never take that option because it doesn't benefit from the heavy magazines, so you're not getting a lot out of it. Another option is to take one of the shield generators or take one of the generators. However, you'd be sacrificing so much firepower. I don't really see that happening with this ship just yet. It does come with an internal magnetic generator of itself, or out of itself, so it does have some extra protection, and it can take those extra skiffs, those escorts, at plus 7 point each. You can take up to 3 of them, and remember, that's a free upgrade if you take a maximum Iskandar unit as well, so that's not bad. Next up, we have a bit of a weird one. That's the Horem Grand Cruiser. Comes in at 280 points, and essentially that's what you get when you glue 2 heavy cruisers together and take some sort of a catamaran option out of this one. This one has all of the heavy guns that you could ever want, all forward facing, and it comes with heavy magazines. So it is 280 points, but that is your heavy firepower machine. And on top of that, it can take 2 different generators. I think they are mounted sort of in between the bridge, between both hulls when you make this catamaran option. And it can take the Atomic Fury Magnetic Mirage, Portal, Repulsion Shield or Shroud generator for no additional cost. So it's just built into that rather steep 280 points. Also, for being 280 points, you're not really dealing with, well, you're dealing with enough hull points. It's 12, which what you would expect from a battleship, but only armor 11 and only Citadel 11, armor 7 and Citadel 11. That's nothing to write home about. And it does get the agile rule, but it does not get the power slide. And with only a turn limit of 3, agile isn't going to save you that much. I mean, it's a fairly slow ship, but it does have the linear dash as well. Things you can do, however, you can change all 4 of your heavy gun batteries with 2 of those special bomb launchers in the forward firing arc that we mentioned earlier when we were discussing the weapons. So that could be an interesting build, but again, it requires you to sacrifice that juicy heavy magazines rules, so I tend not to when I'm talking about battleships. You can get those flechette launchers in other ways, on ships that don't necessarily suffer that badly from it, and in units where you can get multiple ships with those portal generators to give you a bit of extra reach on them. So I wasn't quite convinced with this option rather, on paper. Also, this one can take up to 3 of those skiffs, as you would imagine, just like the other one. And then next up we have the Silla fleet carrier, which is a mass 4 ship, so that's probably going to end up being their big hitter box, like the Victory and Enterprise set along those lines. 260 points for this carrier, but it does come with an SRS capacity of 12, which is reduced to 6 when crippled. And when you look at it, it does have 4 rocket batteries. However, you can't stack 3 of them together for heavy magazines that easily. Looking at those firing profiles, the best you can do is stack 2 of them together. So even though it has heavy magazines, don't expect this one to really pack a punch in terms of firepower. It does, however, come with an internal shield generator built into those 260 points, and it's still armor 8, which is fairly respectable for a carrier, along with 14 hull points in total, and all of the defenses you could want from both that special downgrading all of your critical hits and the armor decking means that this one is going to be slightly tricky to take down. On top of that, it just does what you'd expect from a carrier combat air patrol with SRS mine clearance and the option for a recon flight. So I don't think this is a bad option at all when you're looking at what carriers cost. Those heavy carriers like the Victory and the Enterprise, they are a lot more expensive for sort of similar ships. So actually I'd like to see the other ones drop down to a similar point level to this Suleiman fleet carrier as well. And now onto the meat and potatoes of any fleet, the general cruisers and Mass 1 ships, Mass 1 and 2 ships that you can take. The first one we're taking a look at is the Iden supply ship. It comes in at 115 points. You don't get a lot of guns from it, in fact barely any. It just has a normal torpedo salvo and a broadside, so you're definitely not taking this one for its firepower, and you're also not taking it for any SRS capacity. It can escort though, and it does get some extra bonuses to it, mostly logistical support, giving you an extra Victory and Valor card in hand, which can be very handy, and a supply depot. And that rule essentially states that any friendly model within 7 inch may remove a single level of disorder at the start of their activation. That's a really good one though, because if it happens at the start of their activation, that means that even if you are at full panic mode, you're just downgrading that one, and at least your own weapons will be able to fire together, which I think is crucial for these Sultanate ships, because they come with so many of them. So even though it doesn't really have a lot of firepower, I might consider one, especially because of that escort duty, where you can just tag it onto your flagship and send it along its way as well. Next up is the Carolus heavy destroyer. When we're looking at heavy destroyers, the first thing I check is the Citadel, and thank God this is Citadel 12, which means it's worth considering. It comes in at a very hefty 45 points per model, so that's definitely not cheap, and for that money you get an etheric lance firing forward and a rocket battery to go on as well, and that's decent. I mean, the etheric lance is quite a solid weapon, and with regular old rocket batteries you get some extra range added to it, so that's definitely not bad. And when we're looking at armor 6 along with 3 hull points, these things are not dying to a stiff breeze as Mass 1 ships tend to do, so I'm liking the look of this one. Also, it has elite crew. I'm not sure how wise it is to go and assault a lot with Frey 6 Mass 1 ships, but hey, if you stack a lot of ships together, it might help, because they've got the Corcaroli rule, meaning they support assaults with an extra 3 dice into the fray, so swarming your opponent with these heavy destroyers might just be a valid tactic for them. They are not yet released though, so this is all theory crafting. I have not seen them in action yet. Next up is the Constantinople support carrier, super carrier does sound better, doesn't it? But it's 115 points. Straight off the bat, that is cheaper than what most other factions pay for their SRS carriers, and with an SRS capacity of 4, it's not like they're losing out on a lot of these. And when we're considering armor 6, citadel 10, along with a still decent amount of hull points, slightly lower than what you would expect for other faction, it is super decent. I mean, the 1 hull point lower than most other carriers is largely offset with their defensive things like armor decking and the aurichalcite construction, so yeah, I rate this one as excellent. It does seem like the Turks are able to get some very cheap carriers compared to other factions, and I hope that is a trend that continues, because even with the recent buffs, I still find carriers to be in a bit of an awkward spot in the game right now. Next up is the Hashashkin, fast destroyer. Oh god, these names. There's 76 points, and you get 2 of these fast destroyers for that. And when we're looking at it, again, mass 1, so check out Citadel. It's alright at Citadel 10, especially with armor 5 and 2 hull points. You're not really paying a price for that one. And the weird thing about it is, it doesn't mention anywhere that you can buy additional ships for these. So I'm hoping that gets fixed soon. Oh no, wait, it does. My bad, it says it here. Normally it does so at the bottom side of there, which was instantly where my eye was drawn. 38 points per model sounds fairly decent for something with 2 gun batteries, a light broadside and a micro torpedo salvo. It's not quite at the level of Excaliburs from the Crown, but then again, these are a lot faster than those, so yeah, decent enough option in my book. Next up was that standard cruiser you get, the Iskandar. Remember, interesting choice because you need to take a full unit of 3 of them to benefit from your Natolia battle fleet. When we're looking at what's going on, they appear to not be that big on hull points, as I said in the introduction, but with armored decking and the protection against catastrophic hits, you might see them pull through for a longer time. 2 heavy gun batteries facing forwards makes it a very easy ship to pilot, and if ease of piloting wasn't quite enough, with agile and power slide along with linear dash, yeah, this is a great cruiser for 95 points. I mean, nothing much to add to it. A very interesting option as well, one that I would strongly consider, is the particle beamers on these things. I mean, particle beamers I think are quite a cut above heavy gun batteries, and with their sustained qualities you can have super reliable ships should you so desire. So yeah, I'm liking the look of that. You are bumping them up to 105 points for cruisers, although with their speed and maneuverability along with an option to take particle beamers, yeah, worth considering, definitely worth considering. Next up is something that I think is a mistake in the Orbat, is the Izmir Monitor. When I was double checking earlier, the Izmir Monitor is the one that on their build instructions doesn't have a gun battery in the back, so I think that is a mistake there, something that needs to be rectified. They come in at 77 points for a monitor. That's not an extreme amount of firepower for 77 points, but they do get that maritime patrol, meaning they are supposedly meant to hunt other submarines in this faction, which is essentially what they do. And again, as a reminder, you can also just swap out with particle beamers if you want to go and target those submarines. So yeah, still a decent enough choice in my book, although 77 points might still be a bit too steep for that ship. The most interesting choice by far is the Mimit Grand Monitor. Comes in at 200 points, and that is the catamaran option with your frontline squadron to glue 2 hulls together in essence. You get 4 of those heavy gun batteries, the same as the flagship did, but checking through the special rules, there are no heavy magazines found on these, so it's a significant downgrade in the amount of firepower. However, you do get 2 torpedo salvos, and you get heavy broadsides to go along with them, so at 200 points, that's not a bad deal. You're looking at cruiser size toughness with armor 6, citadel 10, and 14 hull points in grand total, so that's great. However, this one is odd. It also has turn limit 3, agile, and this one does get power slide, so it is actually a bit more maneuverable than the heavier Horem class that we saw earlier as well. You can only take a single one per battle fleet, mind you, so there's no spamming this even if you could. So yeah. And another fun thing, this one is the Sultan's Monitor, meaning any friendly units within 10 inch may reduce a single disorder level at the start of the activation. So that is essentially like that support ship was already doing, and that one came in at 115 points. Given how this one has that Sultan's Monitor rule, I would almost always opt for this one instead. Of course, you can't tag it onto a main battleship, so you can't benefit from that escort duty, so that's the one thing that the first one we saw, the support ship, does have going for it. Other than that, I really like the look of this. If I were to be playing Sultanate, I'm not starting this fleet just yet, but yeah, this one would be high on my list to build. Next up is the Mirima bombard cruiser, and this one comes with that special frigate launcher that we discussed, the one that is so interesting with the portal generators, and this one does come with an internal portal generator of its own. There's a weird thing though, something that doesn't pan out. It says this unit is equipped with an internal portal generator, it may not be upgraded or replaced, and the line above it says you can replace it with weapons. So I'm thinking that's something that they have to clean up as well in a future update, so keep your eyes peeled for that one when it drops. That being said, if you're looking at that ship, you are getting a cruiser for 125 points. That's nothing unheard of, but it does rely heavily on that very short range flechette launcher. There's other factions though that have very short range weapons at a similar points cost, but without the option of just putting a bunch of launchers and dropping them far away as well. I think a unit of 3 of these might be on the expensive side, but it could very much be an interesting option regardless of what goes on. Then we have the Pasha light cruiser. That's the one that actually has the heavy gun battery aimed forwards and the light gun battery, the normal gun battery, pointed towards the back, so I think they sort of mixed this one up with the Izmir. It has a more interesting points cost at only 70 points though, so I'm liking this one. Also, with Vanguard rule, it's moving up the board quite a lot faster, and with speed 9 and linear dash, expect something that can just reach across the board very, very quickly. However, the weird thing is, it's got 3 hull points in battle ready state and 4 in crippled, and I'm wondering if those need not be reversed, because all of the other cruisers had it the other way around. Not sure if this is an error or if it was actually meant this way. But yep, I mean, if you want to spam cruisers, this is a very viable option as well. And you can go for the option of full sustained weapons, because it can upgrade the gun battery for an etheric lance, should you so desire, and then upgrade the main gun to a particle beamer for 5 points, and it would drop in at 78 points for a Pasha light cruiser. I could see that being very useful. Also, never mind the fact that you have a sight firing profile along with a torpedo salvo aimed at the front, because these things are maneuverable as maneuverable as they get. Next up is the heavy hitter, the Sadrazam heavy cruiser. For a heavy cruiser, 115 points is a very nice and yeah, cut down cost compared to what other factions pay, but again, not that many hull points, so keep that in mind. 2 heavy gun batteries, however, aimed towards the front, and a single gun battery aimed towards the back means that you've got that side firing profile on this one again, but power slide and agile will set you up really nicely. And for a heavy cruiser at speed 8, that is still quite maneuverable. So yeah, you're gonna want to make good use of its maneuverability, play a bit like a glass cannon with these, but I'm liking the look of that. This one, in my book, is an absolute steal, the Tamar frigate. It was already good when I was first looking over the first ORBAT, and they seem to have kept them at a very reasonable 25 points per model. And for 25 points per model, you're just getting a gun battery, a normal one, but you're also stacking that with a micro torpedo salvo. And yeah, that can hurt because it's got Pack Hunter as well to go with it. So that is a horrendous amount of firepower out of Mass 1 ships, and yeah, with speed 13 and a very respectable armor and citadel. I mean, ye gods, 5 and 10 is something you'd expect in heavy destroyers from other factions. This Tamar frigate has got the firepower and the toughness to go toe-to-toe with any other Mass 1 ship, so I think this one is an absolute strong point for this faction. And there we go. That's the ships so far. I'm really looking forward to what they are doing with the French as well, and once they are released, they can go on to the really juicy stuff in Dystopian Wars, because then all 8 factions will have been released. I hope to see you again when that ORBAT drops, and see you next time. Bye!